It's worth mentioning a bit about the trade-offs. It's never going to be perfect, let's say. So I remember reading up an article about carbon emissions when you have cage-free. Um, with cage-free, you're certainly going to use more land, they're running around. Um, can you talk about some of the trade-offs that we have to kind of think about and just acknowledge that it's not going to be a perfect setup? Because for us at Future Green, we often say, well, maybe you could encourage your chefs to use less eggs and diversify the protein source so that you have other options. And once you start working on the other costs like energy and waste, more plant-based foods, you start to save money, and then maybe you can use that line item, that expense, to source higher quality products. But do you often have those conversations where it's okay, if we do this, just be aware of this?
Almost every conversation includes that, and it is a challenge. I mean, cost is a very fundamental business topic, right? And it's a very real concern. So we have had some companies try to do some work on food waste and use that money, to pay a little bit more for eggs. But bear in mind that when chickens are cage free, they move more. So because of that, they consume a bit more feed.
Mm.
And the carbon footprint actually comes from the feed, right? Because the cost of an egg, 70 to 80% of that comes from the feed, you know, and the others will be labor costs and so on. But the feed is where the bulk of the cost is. But it doesn't have to cost that much. We have data because cage-free is not a new thing. So we have data from years and years from Europe, US, showing that cage-free costs technically 20 to 36% more than regular eggs. And because eggs are cheap compared to beef and seafood and some other protein, so overall it doesn't impact that much. We have heard cases of hotels telling us the overall cost increase is 1%,
Mm.
when they transition fully to cage free. But in some cases you do have to work out how you're going to absorb the cost, or you can maybe source less animal protein, have more
Mm.
plant-based, and then with that, you can afford slightly higher welfare animal protein. There is a
Yeah.
trade-off, just like how organic food, in many cases, organic food is slightly higher in carbon footprint than conventionally grown ones. But the hidden cost of not doing it, it's also something to be considered, because there is a hidden cost of not moving to higher welfare systems as well.
Well,